what I'm very proud about myself in that chapter is I didn't campaign for her to feel the same way that I felt. So even though I wasn't ready to, I could have just, no, we're both mad.
Right.
Or no, you're still not going because I'm mad.
Right, yes.
I said, you know what? She has forgiven. I need more time.
Right, yeah.
So she can still go. She can participate. I respect and love her for who she is.
Right. Yeah.
And then I dealt with my emotions on my own. And I think sometimes as parents, we don't give our kids that freedom to allow them to move on from something that we haven't moved on from.
Right. We're still holding on to it. Hi, Unforsaken family and friends, and welcome to another episode of the Unforsaken Sisters Podcast. I'm Xochil Elmore, and I'm your host, and I'm so excited to be here today. Every month, we bring on a lady that is a powerful leader in our community, and that is Unforsaken. Today, we have a very special and beautiful guest, my friend Doris. Hi, Doris.
Hey, Xochil. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. So Doris Jackson-Shazier is a friend of mine and now an author, and I'm so excited to share your book with our Unforsaken family. The book is called Raising Justice, Lessons Learned Through Motherhood. And I'm so excited to be interviewing today. Before it even was released, I got a sneak peek. Yes. I was seeing chapters and I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be so good. So when it finally was released, you were like, here, and I want to just share this book with our Unforsaken family because it's so good. You have to get it, and we are going to make sure that it's in our comments so that you can have a link so that you can buy it today. So first of all, on behalf of Unforsaken Women, we want to thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, and one of our missions is to minister to single moms and widows in this community. But Mo's heart is to encourage moms no matter what season they're in their mom journey. But she loves to encourage moms to really spend time with them and teach them while they're young. And that's what this book is exactly about. Yeah. And I just can't wait to hear how God has led you to write this book. But first, before we get into the book, I want the Unforsaken family to hear about you, about Doris. How long have you been here in Florida? About your family?
All right, so I am a true Floridian.
Yes.
I was born here in Orlando, Florida.
Okay.
I grew up in Miami, Florida. Okay. And then I relocated here to Claremont, Florida by way of Tallahassee. I went to college in Tallahassee, and that's where Justice was born.
Yeah.
So I've been in Florida my whole life, and
a true Floridian.
Yeah, true Floridian.
Yes.
And I love Claremont. It's like the only part of Florida that doesn't quite look like Florida.
Right, yeah, that's true.
So the first time I saw it, I was like, man, it feels like you're like somewhere else, but you still have all the goodness of being in Florida.
Yeah, that's true.
So I had to be here, and so we bought our home here in 2016, and so rest is history.
Oh, wow. So tell us about your family.
All right, so my family consists of my husband, Dion. We've been together, the last 21 years, so young couple.
Yes.
And then I have 4 beautiful, beautiful children, well, a young adult now.
Right.
So I have Justice, who's now 20.
Wow.
I have Dion Jr., who's 17. I have Dorian, kind of like my junior. I'm Doris, and he's a descendant of Doris, which are Dorians.
Oh,
so that's why I named him Dorian.
Yeah.
And then we have our baby, Davion, who's 5 years old.
Okay. So I remember when he was born, or when he was in the belly, you guys said something. You had T-shirts made. What was his T-shirt that said?
He was mic drop.
Yeah,
he
mic
was the
drop.
last.
Yeah.
I was the executive producer.
Yeah, I love that. Everybody had a different shirt, a different title. That was so cool. So again, before we get into the book, our ministry is faith-based, and we want to hear about your salvation and your faith journey so far.
Oh, okay. So I was first baptized as a child. I think I had to be about 8 or 9 years old. I don't remember it quite as much. I just know that my grandmother, she took us to church. We joined a youth group. We volunteered, and being baptized was just a part of the experience. I can't say I built my relationship with God at that point because I don't think I quite understood, which is something I really want to do differently with my children.
Yes.
And so I was rebaptized actually at 33.
Oh, wow.
When after coming to Hope International Church, and so I was rebaptized. And it was completely amazing. But I was 33 when I was rebaptized.
That's awesome. So let's get into this book because
Okay.
it's so good. I
Thank you,
enjoyed
Xochil.
every single chapter. And before we get into the book, but what made you want to write this book? How did it come about?
So I've always wanted to be a writer. I
Okay.
started my first book at 15 years old.
Oh my
I've actually
goodness.
started 10 books, but had never completed
Are kidding
one.
me. Oh
Never
my
completed
goodness.
a book. So this is the first book that I've written
Wow.
to completion.
Yes.
And I started raising justice. It actually was called Justice Sayings. That's what I used to call the book. I started
Right.
when she was about 4 or 5.
Okay.
And I just journaled the craziest things that she would ask me, some of our experiences, how she would challenge me as a child. And I knew, like, I would have never got away with asking my mom this or saying this or
Right.
doing this.
Yes,
Like, my grandmother
for
was
sure.
just very old school. Like, it just wouldn't happen. And so I wrote down just these interesting topics and things we talked about.
Right.
And so I've journaled this book over the course of almost 15 years.
Right.
I originally thought I had came to the end of this book back in 2022 when she graduated high school, because in maybe 2017, I journaled the last chapter of this book, our graduation. And so when she graduated from high school, I naturally thought, oh, well, this is the end of the book.
Right.
But it just didn't feel right. Like, logically, I thought
Right,
it,
right.
but in my heart, I'm like, why doesn't it feel complete?
Yeah.
And so you get to read in the book that really our graduation happened this year.
Right.
And so I
Yes.
wrote the last chapter, rewrote it
Yes.
this May,
Oh my goodness.
at her college graduation, because it was a full circle
Right.
moment.
Yes.
I
Oh
had
my
got to
gosh.
see her at the age that I was when I was
Right.
pregnant with her.
Yes.
And then I knew this is how this book ends.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I love this book, like I said, because, you know, there's so many lessons and just so much wisdom, but also tears, because it's cool.
You will
'cause-
laugh, cry, everything in the book,
exactly. And one of the things that it's cool because I know the author and I know Justice, and you know when she went off, of course, you know, when she went off to college, I didn't see her very often, but I do want to share this. I think I texted you this, that we were in the airport and we haven't seen Justice in years, and we were right behind her as we were taking off our shoes and stuff, putting our things on the for the security, and you like, we looked rough because we were like, we're vacationing. It was our anniversary trip. And I was like, Stephen, that's Justice. And so he was like, we need to say hi to her because we love you guys. We love your family. And so we said hi, and she was so respectful, so kind, so loving, gave us a huge hug, and just, you know, like, a lot of times youth don't really have conversation, and she was just like, so where are you guys going? And I was like, she's just such a great human being, and it's just so cool, you know?
I love it because I don't have to make up anything about her.
No, absolutely
Like, everything
not.
in the book is the truth. She is not a perfect child,
Right.
but a great child.
Yes.
Just a good human being.
So
She's
good.
a person that
Right.
that you just like.
Right,
you
right,
know, like,
yes.
I have to love her.
Yeah.
But I don't have to like her, right?
Exactly. That's so
But no,
true.
I like her because she has such a warm and just
She is.
hospitable type personality. So
sure.
I'm very proud of her.
Yes,
Thank you.
yes. And I know that you've done some interviews with her about the book, and so that's cool. So, you know, you have to check all that out. We'll make sure that we hashtag you and your book, so
Definitely, I
that people
appreciate that.
can see different venues that you've been doing to promote the book. But as we get into the book, I just want to talk about some of the stuff that I highlighted.
Okay.
Again, it's such a great book, but it's an easy read. And when I say that's easy read, it's a quick read, but there's so much wisdom that, you know, you could read it in one sitting, probably like about 2 hours.
So yeah, it's specifically designed this way.
Yes.
I wanted this book to be for women in leadership,
Yes.
working moms, even the single mom, and we just don't have a lot of time
Yes.
on our hands. So
Yep.
the book and all of my work is specifically designed to be at that 2.5 hour mark or a
Right.
weekend read,
Yes, that's so good,
so that you can kind of get the nuggets that you need, get the
Yes.
encouragements that you need, and then be about your day.
Absolutely. Because there's so many times that we women, we were like, you know, we're at conferences or we see a great book by a great author that we love, and we'll start it, but we don't finish it.
Exactly.
You know, and so this is so great. And so I'm going to just go right into the book. I just want you to tell us a little bit about, like, why this what happened at the clinic. Can you tell us a nutshell? Because I even texted you and I was like, oh my goodness, was this
So everything in the book is true.
Yeah, yes,
Everything in the book is true.
Yes.
And so I love to tell people how the book begins and
Right.
how it ends, because I think the meat of it really is in the
Right.
middle.
Absolutely.
And so, this
Yes.
book really begins outside of a clinic.
Right, right.
It begins with me. I'm sick. I don't understand that I'm pregnant.
You think it's the flu or something?
I'm thinking I have a stomach bug.
Yeah.
Stomach flu that, that I can't keep anything down. And
You're at college.
I'm in college. So
FSU.
this is Tallahassee,
Yes.
Florida State University.
Yes.
I was going to FSU at the time. I'm 19.
Right.
I'm on a first generation college student. So I'm the
Right.
first person in my family to attend college on a full scholarship.
Wow.
I meet this guy. We've been
Right.
dating for the last month or so. He actually wants me to meet his mom this week.
Right. Oh my goodness.
And I'm sick, so I'm trying to get to the doctor, get some medicine
Right.
before I go to meet his mom
Right.
and everything. And I find out that I am pregnant,
Right.
And definitely from a previous relationship.
Okay.
All right, so of course.
So that guy you were going to meet was the mom was
Dion.
Dion's,
It's not my husband. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And it was interesting because I just felt like this is the worst possible time for something like this to happen. Like, you
Right.
met this guy, you really like him, he wants you to meet his family, you're on a full scholarship. I
Right.
didn't have a job at the time.
Right.
Like,
School is your work,
I'm
right?
I'm
Yes.
barely taking care of myself, and now I found out I'm pregnant and from someone that I know I'm not going to have a relationship with.
Right.
And so, I go to the yellow pages, the phone book at the time, right?
Right,
And
yes.
there's this big ad. I remember it like yesterday. It was on like the right side of the page in the top corner, and it said, confused, question mark, pregnant,
Right.
thinking about abortion. I'm like, sounds like me.
Right, exactly.
And so I schedule an appointment, I go there, and then I would like to say, like, just divine intervention. As I'm
Right.
approaching there, a woman approaches me and tells me, you wouldn't be able to do what you're thinking about doing if you named that baby.
Right.
And I'm like, excuse me, ma'am?
I know.
And now in hindsight, she must have worked there.
Right.
And maybe she was leaving work as I was coming.
Yes.
But I still didn't connect the two
Right.
at first. And she's like, you have to name the baby so you don't do what you're thinking about doing.
Wow.
And so the first words that I uttered was justice.
Wow.
She's like, and what if it's a girl? And I'm
Right.
like, it's still justice,
Yeah,
boy or
yes.
girl.
Wow.
And then she's like, okay, you wouldn't hurt justice, right? And I'm like, no. And then I go in the clinic
Right.
anyway.
Yes.
And so I go in there, and again, I'm still confused, pregnant,
Right.
wanting an abortion.
19.
19,
Yes. Yeah.
feeling like I have the weight of the world. I'm embarrassed, even
Right.
though a lot of people don't even know I'm
Right.
embarrassed.
Right.
By the whole situation. And I go in, and again, God is just so funny in terms of, this was not an abortion clinic, it was a Christian help center.
Oh my goodness.
And so,
Wow.
I went there, they
my
counseled
gosh.
me, they prayed with me. She asked me the same thing, hey,
Right.
if you name this baby,
Yes.
you wouldn't be able to do what you're thinking about doing. And I said, justice again. And
Right.
so I named her at about 10 weeks pregnant.
Oh my gosh.
And I just stuck with
Wow,
justice.
yes. Wow.
Yeah.
You know what's so interesting? My cousin, which is my best friend, she works at a Christian pregnancy center down in Miami, and she says that they're not allowed to do that anymore. With it, about asking or encouraging the mom to name the baby. They're like, we can't do that anymore. And I'm like, wow, the Lord was so kind. And
I think it made all the difference.
Yes.
It humanized the
Absolutely.
experience, and it was something that was powerful when she did have a name.
Right.
They did that with me, and I'm grateful for it.
The first chapter, you have to read the whole thing because there's just so much. It's called Fate and Faith. And I even said, was that an angel that you think that came? We never know. The Bible says that we're entertaining angels all the time, and that specific woman that she caught you, it just said, name your baby. It just changed your life.
Yeah.
And
I still was a little stubborn, and I went in there anyway.
Right,
I always
right.
think to myself, man, why would I still walk in there if she had
Yes.
told me that?
I
But I went in there anyway.
Yeah.
But I was just like, it meant a lot. And so, so that first chapter is interesting. But I love also about that first chapter is, again, the little seed of faith that my grandmother had introduced me to
Yes.
allowed me to literally fall on my knees and pray
Right.
in that pregnancy. And I asked God for very specific things.
Right.
And again, I didn't know about the Bible very much. I
Right.
didn't have, I didn't grow up in the church per se. We were very seasonal churchgoers.
Yes.
But I prayed for very specific things in that pregnancy. And then through this book, you really get to hear how God honored every last one of those prayers.
Yes. As a 19-year-old, you were praying those things, and now they're in fruition.
Yep.
You know, just so powerful that you know what to pray for, but that was Holy Spirit interceding
exactly.
for you. So as we go to, again, I'm trying not to go through every chapter because I don't want to give all of it, but just some of the nuggets that I got from the book was chapter 3 is called Intuition and Advocacy. Yes. And the last thing I don't know if you remember all the books, but the last chapter of the last paragraph of this chapter on page 23, it's a lesson I continue to carry with me. Our children deserve, do you remember this chapter? Our children deserve to be heard and protected. They need to know that their feelings are valid and that we as parents will be their fiercest advocates, even when it's difficult. Again, I get teary-eyed because I always tell Jude and Evelyn, if you make a mistake, you make a mistake. Me and Dad are going to be there to protect you. Yep. We're going to be there to advocate for you, but you need to tell us so that we can cover you. We'll behind closed doors, we'll discipline you, but in front of anybody else, I am not going to, point out your mistakes. And so when I felt that, but that's the foundation for a strong relationship with the groundwork for them to become confident, self-assured individuals. When they see us stand up for what's right, even when it's hard, it teaches them the courage to do the same, not just for themselves, but for others as well. Can you kind of tell us a little snapshot about that?
Yeah, well, what I love about that part and what I learned in that situation really was that, again, advocacy sometimes can be hard.
Right.
It can be really hard and be challenging. And I think the other element of that chapter also is intuition. I believe that, and again, in thinking about spiritual warfare, I think that mother-daughter relationships are complex.
Right.
But I think one of the things that the enemy does is when our daughters are really young, or when we were young daughters, he creates a moment of confusion where we lose trust with our parents or with our children.
Right.
And so I always think of that moment as a test for me. This was a moment where I didn't have evidence of what happened. My daughter didn't say anybody did anything wrong to her,
Right.
but she said she felt it.
Right, yes.
And so I could have made the choice to dismiss her feelings and say, you know what, your feelings are wrong.
Yes.
You don't understand, or just try and make her second guess her intuition.
Right.
But in that situation, I just feel like I didn't fall into that trap. I said, you know what, you feeling it is enough for me to take action.
Absolutely.
And I think it really formed something in our relationship, but it affirmed her that it's okay to trust intuition, which would then lead to her trusting the Holy Spirit.
Right. Wow.
Because we can't explain everything, but we know it. We can feel it. And so I wanted to honor that with her. And so I think that's what advocacy sometimes is about. Sometimes it's not pure concrete evidence. Sometimes you literally are protecting intuition.
Right,
or feeling.
Yes, absolutely. And I love that because when we were growing up, I think we're around the same age, we didn't it's be quiet. If we're speaking against an adult,
Oh, you couldn't speak against an adult.
Yeah, you couldn't. And
try calling an adult a liar.
Exactly. What? And for you to be like, nope, I'm going to break that right here in this generation. This is not going any further. And for you to, be like, no, I'm going to listen to what my daughter says and affirm her in that. Yeah. That's huge.
It was hard. Yeah. I don't want to gloss over how hard it was, because this was the family that I was we weren't married yet, but I wanted to marry into, that I wanted to impress, that I wanted to love me and accept me, because I already was fighting the uphill battle of being with my husband, who I was pregnant by someone else when he chose me.
Right.
And so already fighting those opinions. So to rock the boat with them wasn't an easy decision for me. but my job as a mother
Yes, for sure.
superseded the opinions of others.
Yes. Oh, that's so good. That's so good.
Thank
so
you.
as we go to chapter 4, sex and exposure, I'm not really going to go into that chapter, but
That's an interesting chapter, though.
I did want to highlight that this is I put in the book that, like I said, mine's all highlighted and starred. I put on the side. This one, me and Steven need to read together, because as we're going through, I have a 16-year-old and a 10-year-old, and these conversations are tough, but they're so needed.
They are needed.
Because they're going to hear about that
Either way it
outside.
goes.
So it's better to hear it from us and have that conversation.
What I love, Xochil, about what you're saying is that you're inviting Steven into the book,
Right,
because
yes.
I mean, the feedback that I've gotten from men from men about the book has just been a blessing.
Right.
Has been a blessing.
Yes.
So women, yes, but
Yes.
men also. There are lessons that you can take away in the book.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we're going to go to chapter 5 again. I didn't go into chapter the sex chapter, but I am encouraging you to go into it when you get your book. So chapter 5 is so good. It's talking about integrity and accountability, and there's so much that I don't want to give it all away, but one of the things, the nuggets that I highlighted. There's a lot, but this was so good. It's talking about. Let me just read it. In that moment, Justice's gaze bore into me, her eyes silently demanding an explanation for the inconsistency in my past statements. It's as if she was asking, Mom, why are you lying to me? She was not about to let me off the hook without addressing the confusion plaguing her mind. And then the next chapter, next paragraph, in that moment of vulnerability and self-reflection, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude for my daughter's honesty. This unexpected encounter had become a humbling reminder of the power of genuine communication and the importance of embracing our imperfections in the pursuit of understanding. So can you tell us a little bit about this chapter? So much.
Again, at this time in the book, I think Justice is about 7 or 8 years old.
Yes.
And again, I've always nurtured her personality
Right.
and that closeness where she can come to me about anything.
She can,
and
questions.
so when she started to see I was inconsistent, and
Right.
guys, this is
Right.
little things.
Yes,
This is little
yes,
things. Like
yes.
I told her kids can't have babies.
Right, yes. Yeah.
Nothing wrong with telling her that,
exactly,
right?
Right.
I told her you can't have a child without being married. You have to
Right.
be married first. So this is my way of trying to raise her
Right,
more
right,
righteous.
right.
But
Speak
know,
it in her
the
life.
way,
Yeah.
speaking it in her
Yeah.
life. But for her, it was like, wait a minute,
Right. That's
my
not the case.
16-year-old aunt just got pregnant,
Right,
and
right.
you said kids isn't. And she asked me in a way, "Isn't Nobi a kid?" And I'm
Right.
like, "Yeah, like why?" And she's
Yes.
like, "But Nobi's having a baby."
Right.
I thought you said kids couldn't have babies.
Right.
And I'm like, kids shouldn't have babies. Like you don't want to do it that way.
Absolutely.
But Mom, are you married? And we weren't married
Right,
yet.
yes.
And it's like, I thought you couldn't have a child unless you
Right.
were married.
Oh
like,
my gosh, she is just holding you accountable.
holding me
Yes.
accountable, and
gosh.
so it changed the dynamic of our relationship because. And daughters have a way of doing it. Like you
Yes.
understand your mom more when you
Right.
become a mom,
Absolutely.
but your daughter has these parts of your personality that
Yes.
kind of hold a mirror to you. And so I've always been a high accountability person with other people,
Right.
and now here I have my
Yes.
7-year-old like,
Oh my
you're
gosh.
holding a mirror to me. Like,
Exactly.
you're not being as truthful
Oh, my
about it. Like,
goodness.
why are you doing it?
Yes.
And so it convicted me
Right.
in a way that changed the way that I communicate with her and the rest of my kids. Like,
Right.
I will always give them pretty much the truth.
Yeah.
Like, even if it feels uncomfortable,
Right.
I will literally give them the truth in an age appropriate way. My current 5-year-old wants to know where babies come from. And we tried to give him, a PG-13.
Right.
And he's like, but how does it get out?
Right,
and
right,
so I
yes.
found a video for age appropriate
Right.
video that shows childbirth.
Wow.
And so he watched a video and then he says to me, I say, so now do you get it? And he's like, yeah. He looks at my belly and everything. He says, but I still want to go to the hospital and see them do it. I'm
Oh
like,
my
look, we're not
goodness.
taking you to
Right,
the hospital,
exactly.
buddy. I gave you a video.
Right, yes.
That's how it happens.
Right. Yeah, he's a smart
He's a future
cookie.
doctor, yeah.
Exactly. There's another nuggets in this that I felt. On page 35, it says, one of the biggest lessons I've learned early in motherhood is that you're not just raising children, you're shaping adults. The tender years are when, again, super teary-eyed right here, when we lay the groundwork for good character, self-worth, confidence, and crucial ability to respectfully challenge authority, respectfully, right?
Yeah.
I encourage them to question me in a safe space at home. I equip them with the courage to navigate the complexities of the outside world. And I just want to read this to do what is right is just more acceptable to the Lord than sacrifice. Raising children with strong moral compasses and the courage to stand by them, that's a sacrifice I'm more than willing to make. So what made you?
Well, that perspective really came again from working in leadership. I've been actually right after getting pregnant with Justice, I found my first management position. So I've been in management for over 20 years.
Oh my goodness.
And I've worked with all type of people. My youngest employee is 16, my oldest was about 83.
Oh wow.
And what I've learned is some of them still don't know how to advocate. They don't know how to negotiate.
Right.
They don't have some of these skills to thrive in the workforce because they didn't get them at home.
Right.
They were taught to just be quiet, to be seen but not heard. Like those are things that they grew up with, and so as a leader in the workforce, I saw what the adults look like from those type of kids.
Absolutely. Right.
And having to work with them and reaffirm them. I was the first person to tell some of my employees, I'm proud of you. They hadn't heard that their whole life, that someone was proud of them. And I was determined to not have my kids enter the world that way.
Yes.
And so with Justice and thinking about this accountability and really getting a relationship with the communication is good. Or teaching them how to be, I want them to be great negotiators.
Absolutely.
I want them to be great, assertive leaders. And I have to allow them to practice at home with me. And sometimes my family is just irritated with me because my kid would say something that nobody else kid would say.
Absolutely. Right.
And, I don't flinch at it.
Right.
I'm like, there's nothing wrong with what he said. This is a future husband, father, leader, business owner.
Absolutely.
And I want him to understand the power of his words and his voice. His whole life.
Absolutely.
Not just when he gets to be an adult to do it.
And at the home, it's a safe place.
Yep.
Oh, that's so good. So chapter 7 is a leadership, a child can lead the way. And I have some, again, 45 through 49. I'm not going to read this whole chapter. It was so good. It was so good. But just some nuggets. Oh gosh, just talking about baptism. Okay, so
when Justice got baptized.
Yeah, when she got baptized, and you were really struggling with or deciding if she was ready. It was like on that.
She was 7. She was again 7 or 8 years old, and here she was. I want to be a part of the St. John family, and she got so excited at like the benediction altar call part.
Right. Yes.
It's like every time that part happened, I think it was very powerful for her to observe these people walk down the long aisle.
Right. Yes.
And they're giving their life to God, and so she asked me. It was the third time she asked is when we finally said, okay, let's join the church. But she kind of led us back.
Absolutely.
We love going there. We enjoyed the sermons, but we still, I don't think we're quite ready to make the commitment.
Right, yes.
And then having her at 7 years old, like beg to join the church. And I mean, and her baptism, just the excitement, she was ready to go under and come out.
Yes.
And so it was interesting because, she led us back to church, and then it changed our heart, and then we ended up getting married. We ended up abstaining for a year. So after being together 7 years, we abstained for a year and got married after that.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yep.
That's so powerful. Our kids, they sometimes set the example for us.
Yeah, she led the way.
And that's what you say that Justice's faith journey was just the beginning. I was filled with deep conviction that would accompany her on this journey. It was a road we would travel together. And I think that throughout the book, it's like you guys are growing together. You're growing up together. And even though you were young, just Holy Spirit was in your life. He was, definitely. And still is, of course. But just growing you up together as a young mama, Again, it's so good. The last paragraph of this chapter was, my message is to anyone who is reading this is to recognize, support, and celebrate instances when your children exhibit decisiveness and leadership skills, reinforce their confidence, and nurture their potential. And I love that you say, or maybe you said this before we started talking in the interview, is that you're a different mom for each child. And you're not going to discipline, like I always say this to my kids, I'm not going to discipline you guys the same way, you know, and they might say, well, that's not fair. But they're different people. And just how you are a different person, because as we grow, we change. And so I love that about celebrating them, you know, because no one is going to be a bigger cheerleader than we are for our kids.
Exactly.
You know, and for you to think about your employees, how that was the first time that they have heard that.
It was overwhelming to know that the first person that said it to me, and they were just crazy. Like, I said, so you never heard it from your parents?
Right.
No.
Wow.
No.
Jeez.
Yeah.
You know, my dad, who is in heaven now, he was a huge encourager. And I always say this, that he told me and my brothers that we were the best, even though we weren't, you know, but he was like, you're the best. And we just had this confidence that we were, you know? And so when I think about, I'm like, wasn't all dads that way? And that's not, you know, like think about my Steven, and his dad wasn't that. And so it's such a gift. And then if we can just, even if you haven't done it, you know, from beginning, start right now.
Well, you know? Sometimes what happens is our inner critic is sometimes our parents' voice.
Yes. Oh gosh. Yes.
And once you realize that you can be your kid's inner critic, you talk to them differently. You know, I tell people that I work with in leadership, hey, we have performance evaluations. They have comments on social media. There's enough people out here in the world that's going to tell you what you're doing wrong.
Absolutely.
You don't have to be one of them. Like, you don't have to compete for the position of telling yourself everything that you're bad at or you're wrong at, and things like that. Like, you only speak positive things. And so when I think about the possibility of me becoming my kid's inner critic, and I'm not perfect at it, but it makes me choose my words differently. Instead of saying, oh my God, you're so, you know, messy, I would say, hey, you need to get better about how much you clean or how frequent. But I change my language.
Absolutely.
Like, I try not to get caught up, because I don't want them to be the words. I don't want them to remember those phrases in my voice.
Right. Oh, that's so good. All right, so the next chapter I want to talk about is forgiveness. It's so good because we think about everybody is affected by forgiveness. And what I tell my kiddos is, it's just better if we forgive, because it helps us, because we're holding on to it. It's not affecting the other person that we're mad at. And you touch it on so much and talking about forgiveness because of something that happened to your daughter on a cruise ship, right? And somebody accused her. You have to read the book. You have to get the book.
Read the book.
Somebody accused her of doing something that she didn't do, basically. And you were still mad, right? You were still mad at this adult. And on page 57, she says, no, she just made a mistake. You know, grown-ups make mistakes too. And that probably hits you like a ton of bricks. You're like, no,
I'm like, you're such a sweet kid. You're
exactly.
so innocent.
Right,
like,
yes.
This wasn't a mistake.
Right,
this was an offense against you.
Exactly.
Look, I wanted her so badly to be, you know, understand the whole thing. And when she just made it so simple.
Right.
She's like, I forgive her.
Absolutely.
Adults make mistakes too.
Yes.
And I was just like, oh my God, like, you are so.
Yeah, you're still holding on to that.
You're so amazing.
Right.
In full transparency, I learned a lesson about forgiveness, but I also learned a lesson about autonomy. And if I could just add more clarity to the book, I was mad for a couple years.
Wow.
And I don't think I
because
quite
we
painted
hold on
that
to that
in the
because
book.
It's our babies.
Yeah, I don't think I articulated it all the way.
Wow.
So I understood forgiveness in terms of, wow, she is not holding a grudge.
Right.
She is willing to let it go. She is comfortable still being around that person because she recognizes it as a mistake. Right. However, I understood this as an offense. Like, that person did not have a right to treat you that way. Once they were brought with information that proved that you hadn't did anything,
right.
they should have changed, right? You know, so I held on to it a lot longer. What I'm very proud about myself in that chapter is I didn't campaign for her to feel the same way that I felt. So even though I wasn't ready to, I could have just, no, we're both mad. Or no, you're still not going because I'm mad.
Right, yes.
I said, you know what? She has forgiven. I need more time.
Right, yeah.
So she can still go. She can participate. I respect and love her for who she is.
Right, yeah.
And then I dealt with my emotions on my own. And I think sometimes as parents, we don't give our kids that freedom to allow them to move on from something that we haven't moved on from.
Right, we're still holding on to it.
Yeah, but I have to be honest. Like I didn't forgive right in that moment. Like it took me a while.
Absolutely.
Because I was highly offended by that situation.
Right.
But what I didn't do was I didn't make her sit in it because I was sitting in it.
Right. That's so good.
Yeah.
Because that is so true. Like when we get mad at people, no, you're not going to their house.
Yeah, you're not going to their house. You can't talk to them anymore or whatever. We're done with them. But I didn't do that to her.
Good. That's a lesson right now that I'm dealing with right now. Boundaries, we're not going to get into it, but she talks about boundaries within friendship. If you have daughters that are between, I don't know, 2 and forever,
they're going to run into that mean girl, right?
Yeah, they are. And you don't want your girls to be the mean girls. But it's so good. That one meant a lot to me because I'm dealing with that right now. But I do want to just say this, that you, on page 63, you said this to her, and I'm like, I'm going to start saying this to Evelyn because I know that she knows this, but I just want to affirm her every day. And you said that you tell her, anyway, she returned to the school the next day, fortified by the love and affirmations of her mother. You are loved, you are worthy, you don't have to tolerate mistreatment. Not having you as a friend is a loss to them, not to you, were the words that she carried with her. And, just an example, last week, I actually had to get the guidance counselor involved, full transparency. My daughter was dealing with a mean girl, and I was like, if this doesn't get taken care of, then I'm going to take care of it, and so I said, you are a good friend. You don't need to be treated like that. And she was just so heartbroken. Long story short, the guidance counselor met them, and now they're friends. But but I don't want her. And this helped me so much, this book, because I really was reading that when I was going through that.
Oh,
and
amen.
so it was just timing of it. But I just had to affirm my daughter that she's a win.
Yep.
It's a loss if you don't want to be a friend to her. So that has helped Justice, right, with navigating friendships.
Yeah,
right?
and she has such great boundaries with friends, and she's one of those people that she's a good friend.
Right, yes.
And I'm very proud of that.
Right.
Like, I don't know if that's something to be really proud of, but I am proud that I raised a daughter who knows how to be a good friend.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. That's so understated.
Yeah.
But it's so powerful.
Yeah.
You want to be known as a good friend.
Yeah, I mean, I take a lot of honor in the fact that I am a good friend.
Right.
I'm a good friend.
Yes.
I'm a consistent friend.
Absolutely.
And so to raise a child that understands how important it is to be people's friends.
Right.
It's the beginning of all critical relationships. It's the beginning of business relationships, everything.
Right,
so to be a friend is really important.
Yes, that's so good. So I'm gonna talk about. I'm gonna close this off because it's so good. There's so much more, but
Thank you, Xochil.
I'm a huge cheerleader because I'm so grateful that you let me in on this. So the last chapter is about graduation. Our graduation. It's a beautiful chapter. Great way to end. And I just want to read this paragraph. It says, God answered the prayers that I prayed for her while she was in my womb. I've been blessed to have my husband by my side, protecting me from the difficulties of single motherhood. Justice has never known the pain of growing up without a father, as she was fortunate to have a dad who has been there for her since birth. What a man of God. What a treasure, right? Yes. Through God's grace and my hard work, she has been provided with a comfortable life where all of her needs and many of her wants were fulfilled. Finally, God has allowed her to surpass me. I can't even read the last paragraph. You have to get this book because there's another paragraph. But thinking about that, we always want our kids to surpass us. We
Definitely.
Always do, and that's a goal. I want June and Evelyn to be more successful than me and Steve, and that was instilled in me with my parents. They wanted us to be better, and have the, I hate to say material possessions, but that comes along with it, right?
Yeah.
But they want us to be better than them, not to compete in any way, but because they're so proud of us and we are so proud of our kids. And just this book, how she's always going to have this. You know, this is such a treasure for her. And I just appreciate you being so vulnerable and transparent to be like, I'm going to share this because the world needs to hear this. Holy Spirit has so much wisdom. I'm going to share this and not be embarrassed, because this is probably uncomfortable for your family to read this too. Be like, I didn't know you were mad at that. You know?
My grandparents, there is a couple family members that it definitely made them uncomfortable. And I've had to just pray for them because, you know, when God tell you to do something, am I going to shrink because of how someone else feels? Like every one of those chapters were prayed over. I knew that it's specifically what God wanted me to share. And what I did was love protects and love covers. So one of the things that I did is you don't know who it is. I don't use a lot of names besides my name and Justice's name and the name of my husband and my kids because love protects.
Yes.
And so I have, the book is done in a loving manner, but it also is designed to tell the stories with the testimonies that I know God wanted me to share with others.
Absolutely. And I'm sure there's other stories that you were like, I'm going to share this. And the Holy Spirit was like, nope.
Exactly. There were other stories that I thought, and I was just like, no. Like,
it
Holy
didn't
Spirit
sit well
was like,
with you.
no, that's not the one to share. And I didn't realize this book would be a series when I started it.
That's so good.
And so now I know why he was strategic about what would be shared, because raising Justice was really only the beginning. She's my first child. I learned a lot of lessons with her. But raising Dion has been different too. Sometimes I feel like a public defender. Like he's the child I've had to advocate for the most. And raising Dorian is a different story. And then my 5-year-old, you know, having a child after 35, like raising Davion is a different experience in my motherhood. And so it is a series now. So I know God was strategic with every story because they're meant for a different time and place.
Thank you for sharing that. And can you just give us an update on Justice?
So Justice is doing well. Justice has now, graduated with her business degree from FAMU, and we have her home for about a year. She's working for the Orlando Magic.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
Yeah, and their diversity, equity, and inclusion department. So we're super excited for her. She's starting her master's next month. In data analytics. And I talk about her boyfriend in the book. They're still together, so they're about going on 4 years together.
Wow.
So she's doing very, very well.
Yeah, so she picked a good one.
She picked a good picker. I'm very proud of that.
Absolutely. Yes. Oh, that's so good.
And so, we're just excited about, what's happening, with her, and then as we're growing, raising our other children.
Absolutely. I just thank you so much for sharing with us about this book. This is so good. But as we close, can you share with us a great Bible verse or a great Bible story that you absolutely love?
So one of my favorite Bible stories really is in 1 Kings. It's the story of Solomon, right, with the two women who are arguing about, the baby. And so, literally God delivered me from abandonment on I-10 driving, and it brought to my remembrance this story that I had read in a little Bible stories book when I went to the doctor's office at about 9 or 10 years old. And I'm driving and I hear the Holy Spirit tell me the two women and the baby being split. And I'm like, what? And so I Google it and I reread the story, and I promise you, as I'm reading this story, God told me, the Holy Spirit whispered to me that you are that baby.
Oh, wow.
And I had struggled my whole life with feeling abandoned by my mom, who was a teen parent, and I was her second child, and just has had a rough life.
Wow.
But I grew up with a lot of anger about her having a total of 9 kids, and she did not raise me and my brother. So what was it about me? So it started this perfectionism and ambition in me, because I wanted to prove that this is a child you didn't want to give away,
Wow.
And I was about 30 or so when, again, the story came back to my remembrance. I went back and read it. And that's how strategic God is. Like, I read the story for the first time, 8 or 9, 10 years old. So the seed was planted.
Absolutely.
Didn't remember
Yes,
it.
right.
Comes
Yep.
back to me. And then God whispers in my ear, like, you are that baby. I've never been able to see my mom the same way. All that anger, it literally washed away. And then it became, she gave me away because she didn't want to see me split in half. Different level of respect, different level of, like, it literally changed my heart, just that knowledge and that story.
Right.
Fast forward, I read that story about 5 months later, my mom is shot at a gas station in both of her legs.
Oh my goodness.
She was pumping gas, and it happened right here in Pine Hills.
Oh my gosh.
They went to shoot the car that was pumping gas across from her.
Right.
Shot up both of her legs. Has to be, hospitalized, gets out, needs full-time care.
Right.
I was able to step in, move her into my home, and care for her for months.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
And
Oh
I'm
my
just,
gosh.
all because of that story,
Yeah.
and then God giving me that recognition, and I was able to serve her in a different way because the anger was now
Right.
gone.
Yes.
So it's hands down one of my favorite stories in the Bible, because God literally delivered me from anger and abandonment through that story.
Wow. There's like a whole message in that. Like you could do a whole message, preach a whole message on that. That is so good. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank
because
you.
That I know your grandma because I remember Miss Sandra. And so I know her. I don't think I've ever met your mom.
No,
but
you probably haven't met my mom,
Yeah,
but she lives right in Orlando. But
wow.
my grandmother raised me.
Yes. And just for you to have that freedom, like 30 years. Right? It doesn't come instantly. Like I think that's something that people mistake. Oh, when I become a Christian and I get saved, I can, everything's perfect.
No,
there's things
it's
that God,
a process.
Yeah,
it's
God
gradual.
has to work. Yeah.
And again, he knows when to do it.
Absolutely.
Like, fast forward that happening to her, I would not have been able to serve her or help her had I still had that anger in me.
Absolutely, right.
But he allowed me to see her differently. So when that situation happened,
Doris,
I was like,
so
I have an
good.
extra bedroom.
Right.
You're coming here. We'll get a nurse to come. I mean, I cleaned out her wounds. I know how to use a wound vac now. I did all those things. I cooked her meals and made sure she was on vitamins so that she could be healthy. But I was able to love her genuinely without all those feelings I had carried for so many years.
Jeez, wow. That's powerful. That's
when
so
you have
powerful.
a mom that won't allow you to be split in half, you see her differently.
Right. That's so good. So good. Thank you so much for joining us,
Thank you
Doris.
for the opportunity to share. Like, I am so grateful for this opportunity. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. And we're actually going to get 4 copies of her book, and we're going to be giving them away at our next Unforsaken. So make sure that you attend our next Unforsaken. We're going to be giving those as giveaways. We will make sure that we have links up so that you can purchase the book. I think it's from Amazon, right?
Yeah, it's on Amazon.
Yeah.
Or on my page.
Or on your page.
DorisJackson-Shazier.com.
Yeah, so we'll make sure we have all that, and we'll do the hashtag so that you can make sure you can connect with Doris. But we thank you so much for joining us on this Unforsaken Sisters podcast. Please make sure that you like, you share, and you subscribe to this podcast. And if you like this show, please rate it so we can spread the word about the Unforsaken Sisters podcast. Again, thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next month. Thank you, and God bless.